As we're going through the pastoral planning parameters and looking at the priest workload, we saw that the first priority that priests have has to do with the celebration of the sacraments, things that only priests themselves can do. And so let's look at a few statistics of that sacramental ministry that priests would have within our family of parishes. So, looking at some statistics within our family of parishes, we've already looked at Sunday Masses and weekday Masses, so let's look at now other Masses, such as funerals. So, going back since 2002, we have the trend of the funerals. Overall, it's fairly flat, and so the average number of funerals that we have is about 46 funerals per year. So that's how many the two priests serving in this grouping should expect to do across the various parishes. Most of the funerals end up being at Elgin as well as Petersburg, and then Neely and Ewing follow after that with the most number of funerals. One thing we can do is look at the number of baptisms we have as parishes compared to the number of funerals as well. And because obviously if a parish is growing, you want to have more baptisms than funerals. But if we look at our data, we find that we have a very close number of baptisms and funerals overall within our 8 parishes. We have an average of about 42 baptisms, and I just said we had about an average of 46 funerals. The trend lines, are fairly flat, though there might be a bit of an incline of the funerals and a decline with regard to baptisms. Though this is a best case scenario kind of situation with regard to baptisms, because we know that a portion of the baptisms that we do are people coming back to the parishes where they grew up to have their children baptized, and they may not all be living within our community. So those numbers don't represent parishioners that are going to be within our parishes during their whole life. Then we can look at marriages. Here is the trend. It looks to be a declining trend overall. We average amongst our 8 parishes about 19 weddings per year. Overall, by far, most of the weddings are being done at St. Boniface in Elgin. We can look at confessions. So currently, with regard to confessions, there are about 6 hours of confessions that are available each week. So these are hours where the priest makes himself available for confessions to be heard. It doesn't necessarily mean that he is busy that entire time. He may be waiting for people during that. So when are these 6 hours of confessions being heard? Well, a lot of the time they're prior to the weekend masses. Also in Elgin, we also have Wednesday evening confessions as well. Also, throughout the course of the year, in particular in Advent and Lent, we have reconciliation services. So there's 12 reconciliation services that are done among our parishes, primarily during Advent and Lent. With regard to anointings of the sick, obviously we don't have any data on the specific amount of anointing of the sick that we have, but once again I want to bring up the fact that we have the Willows and the Arbor Care Center, where we want to make sure that we care for our people that are there, as well as emergency calls to Antelope Memorial Hospital. This doesn't restrict our ministry, though, with regard to anointing of the sick. Obviously, we visit people at their homes, as well as other hospitals, for example, Boone County Hospital in Albion. So that gives you some statistics as to some of the other sacramental things that the priests are also going to be doing. Because sometimes we forget that there's other things that the priest is doing the rest of the week. And sometimes people will think, well, why can't you max a priest out on the weekend? Because that's when he's working the most. Well, actually some weeks, from my own experience, sometimes the weekend is the easiest time of the week. And the weekdays are much more busy than even the weekends can be. So hopefully this helps you put that into perspective.